What's up, everybody? It's the History Savant, and in today's video, we'll be discussing the true origin of Black History Month. Before we get started, I need for you all to please do me a favor. Go ahead, like and share this video, and I also need for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The History Savant. Thank you. Please do excuse me if I look off to the side a bit. I have notes that will be guiding me as I share this information with you. It's almost impossible to discuss the true origin of Black History Month without discussing the life of the late, great Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson was born on December 19, 1875, to parents who were formerly enslaved by the name of Anne Eliza Riddle and James Henry Woodson. As many of you may know, the Black man, woman, and child were all prevented from learning how to read during the institution of slavery. However, Woodson always had credited his parents with his thirst for knowledge. But throughout Woodson's adolescent years, he was not able to attend primary school. Determined to get an education, at the age of 17, Carter G. Woodson, along with his brother Robert, moved to Huntington, West Virginia, with aspirations of receiving a formal education. It was there that he would work as a coal miner until the age of 20, when he could finally be able to enroll into Douglas High School. It was also there that he would receive his high school diploma, completing the coursework in less than 2 years at the age of 22 in the year of 1897. For several years, Woodson taught as a school teacher in Winona, West Virginia, before he was hired as a principal at his former high school, Douglas, in 1900. And in 1901, he started attending Berea College, where he would ultimately receive his bachelor's degree in literature in 1903, before he began to travel the world with his work. After receiving his first college degree, Woodson would move to the Philippines, where he would work as a school superintendent for the next 4 years and travel abroad to places like Europe and the Middle East and places in Africa, where he did extensive research and studying on the African diaspora. Woodson would return to America on the cusp of the Great Migration, where he moved to Chicago and enrolled into the University of Chicago for his graduate degrees in Bachelor of Arts and Master of Arts in History. He received both by 1908, just 1 year after returning from his work in the Philippines. With an unwavering mindset to change the thoughts of how people viewed the impact of descendants of Africans had on the history of this country. Woodson would then move to Washington, D.C., where he would work as a school teacher at M Street High School, teaching subjects like French, Spanish, English, and history before becoming the Dean of Students at Howard University and being accepted into Harvard's doctoral program in history, only the second Black student to be accepted into the institution's PhD program, and believed to be the first and only student to not only pursue but to receive a PhD as the offspring of formerly enslaved parents, writing his dissertation on the state of Virginia during the years of the Civil War and earning his PhD by 1912. And in 1915 is when we can begin to see the idea of Black History Month come to fruition. It was that year that Woodson, along with other historians, educators, and Black leaders of the time, would all arrive in Chicago at a conference with the purpose of celebrating the 50th anniversary of freedom for Blacks here in America. It was there in Chicago at the Wabash YMCA, with the leadership of Woodson, that he and others would create an organization called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, an organization whose sole purpose was to study and disseminate information that would change the narrative that descendants of Africans not only had no impact on this country's history, but world history. 1915 was also the year that Dr. Carter G. Woodson would publish his first book, The Education of the Negro, prior to 1861. And the following year, he would release the Journal of Negro History, which is a quarterly reading that Woodson would send out to educators and primary schools to share with their black students. In the year of 1919, after the First World War had ended, was when the Red Summer occurred, a term that many historians use to refer to the hundreds of race riots led by whites when many men returned home only to see that many of their jobs had been taken by black men. This enraged them, resulting in not only the brutalization of black bodies, but also the rise in black consciousness. Although Harlem and Chicago are well known for their Renaissance periods, they were not the only locations where deep thought and amazing forms of literature and art were occurring amongst black men and women. And then in 1920, Carter G. Woodson would be called to speak at the 9th conclave of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. It was in this speech that he would call upon his fraternity brothers to help aid him and take up the responsibility of helping to spread the accomplishments of blacks internationally. From this speech, Omega Psi Phi would be the first to take the task of leading the charge, starting a program named Negro History and Literature Week in 1924, which is still one of its internationally mandated programs, now referred to as Achievement Week. Just 2 years later, in 1926, Woodson, who felt as if he could have more of an impact through his organization, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, he began Negro History Week. Most notably, this way, he could involve mainly women into the conversation of black history. Woodson, who was an intelligent and intentional man, did not choose the month of February because it is the shortest month of the year. He actually chose the month of February because it coincided with the birthdays of two important figures of black life during his time. Many black men and women celebrated the perceived birth date of Frederick Douglass and the birth date of Abraham Lincoln, because these two are believed to have played a pivotal role in the freedom of blacks in this country. Every year moving forward until his death in 1950, between the dates of February 7th and February the 14th, Woodson would use this time to send out pamphlets with information on black life and history to school teachers, churches, colleges, government officials, and different civic organizations whom he hoped could help with the progression of this effort to change the narrative that the black man, woman, and child had no true history. Each pamphlet would also provide instructions and suggestions on how the week should proceed. Sadly, what we consider to be Black History Month did not come to be until after the death of Carter G. Woodson. It's hard to imagine a time when racial tensions in America did not exist, but the 1960s were a peculiar time. As the U.S. had become more involved in the Vietnam War, black students across the country were being more involved in various radical forms of protest and changes, seeing many of their peers disproportionately being targeted on top of the racial discrimination that they faced. Looking back, none seemed to slip through the cracks more than the actions of the Black United Students of Kent State University. In February of 1969, two BUS students of Kent State, then named Carl Gregory and Dwayne Wright, suggested the then referred to as Black History Week be extended to a month to the Dean of Students, Dr. Milton Wilson. Dr. Wilson, who also agreed, pushed to have the month added to the calendar, and the following year, in 1970, Kent State became the first location that Black History Month would be celebrated. The two students and faculty made a move that none of them could imagine would grow into what it had become today. After the change on the campus of Kent State, it began to grow and spread across the nation, but would not be nationally recognized until in 1976, when President Gerald Ford stated at America's bicentennial, seized the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every aspect of endeavor throughout our history. To this day, many question why there is a Black History Month and if it's necessary. The historical relevance of Blacks seems to be becoming more prevalent in the classroom, in books, and even in Hollywood. But Black History Month was never meant to be a time of study. We should learn to study and teach Black history throughout our daily lives. Black History Month was meant to be a month of recognition and reflection on what has already been learned, taught, and done throughout the year or the past. In a quote from Dr. Carter G. Woodson, it explains the entire purpose of Negro History Week, now known as Black History Month. Negro History Week is the week set aside by the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History for the purpose of emphasizing what has already been learned about the Negro throughout the year. If you enjoyed this content that I provided you with, please, once again, like, share, and subscribe to The History Savant. This is only my first video, and I guarantee you that the videos will get better with time. This is only the beginning. I appreciate you.